Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's been a fairly quiet week, certainly for me and for the markets. I'm down 1%, the S&P is down 1.12%. Obviously, we've had New Year's Day in that, so Happy New Year, everyone. But yeah, so sort of one day off, and well, the UK sort of takes part of New Year's Eve off at least. I saw the Americans sort of work right up until 9 in the evening as sort of as normal. Or yeah, I suppose it's not 9 in the evening for them, but yeah, the UK sort of take part of the day off. Yeah, Nasdaq down 1.89%, so a little bit worse off on the tech side. So it was sort of interesting. The Dow Jones was sort of down slightly on market open today, and S&P and Nasdaq up, and then they sort of ended the day, I think, with the Dow up slightly and S&P and Nasdaq down ever so slightly. So you can sort of see it's not a rising tide lift all boats type market at the moment. You've got yeah, things pulling in very different directions. Looking at the sort of portfolio, I have added it was a suggestion last week, and probably a good one, a weekly change, sort of on the individual portfolios. I could only ever get a daily change. So when I sort of show the portfolio, at the end of the week or on Saturday, it was showing Friday's gain or loss, which isn't really all that helpful. There could have been a big move during the week and it wouldn't show that. So yeah, I'm now showing sort of weekly changes, and there've been some reasonable moves. Gold and silver sort of all over the place at the moment. We've sort of had new rules on silver out of China from the looks of it. So yeah, things have been incredibly volatile. Fresnillo and Coeur mining and things sort of moving in opposite directions. So some of this is things happening after the market has shut in the UK and not in the US and that sort of thing. So yeah, Equinox and Pan American sort of both taking a reasonable hit. Samsung, I sold off my Vici holding and put it in the Samsung, and then that's up 16% for the week. So yeah, that seems to have been a very strong sell. But yeah, we'll come back to the portfolio. Just wanted to sort of jump on some of the news. There's been quite a lot of news. No earnings just yet. Obviously, we've just finished Q4 and the sort of end of the year, so we'll start to get some end of year reports come out, but obviously nothing just yet. Obviously, KGHM do report monthly data, which you don't get from most other miners, but it is a little bit old. This is November data, which I didn't report on last week, but we have now, and looking pretty strong. Copper slightly down from this time last year, and sort of slightly down for the 11 months. So this is almost all of production for the year. We've just got one more month to add to that, but they sort of compare the 11 months of this year compared to the 11 months of last year, and copper ever so slightly down, but silver 128.4 tons for November. So as prices are exceptionally high, they have produced an awful lot and sold even more, 140 tons. So expecting very good things out of Q4 earnings, and actually the annual production, or 11 months worth, is up on last year, 1,235 tons. So yeah, could be looking at sort of 44 million ounces with next month. So very nice. So I mentioned Fresnillo before, buying a sort of not exploration company. It sort of were an exploration company, and they now have They now have explored what they were looking for and found it, and Fresnillo sort of have basically bought an oven ready, ready to build mine without having to do sort of all of the usual permitting and feasibility studies and everything. From the looks of it, it's ready to go. Pan American sort of going a little bit earlier, going for earlier stage stuff, wanting to increase their sort of resources for the future, acquiring 18.75 million shares of Galleon Gold, sort of exploration company from the looks of it, and sort of warrants to, basically options to acquire more shares for the future for, sort of slightly more than today's price. So yeah, potential there, and good for expanding their resources. I think you're going to see more of this. Big boys and medium boys, I suppose Pan American are spending this cash that is just overflowing at the moment on sort of acquiring new miners, and some will be just doing buybacks and dividends and things. But I think you're going to start to see the cash flow sort of overflowing, and sort of looking what to do with it, basically, with gold and silver prices sort of so much higher above all-in sustaining cost. It's sort of, I don't recall a time that it's ever been multiples of all-in sustaining cost. It was always 30% more or 40% more. You were over the moon if price was 50% more than all-in sustaining cost, and we're now sort of looking at 3 times all-in sustaining costs. So, as I say, I expect a lot more, news releases of we're buying them, we're potentially merging, acquiring, huge dividends and buybacks and things, which is all good for the share price. Looking at my financial sector, sort of, comprised of what I consider to be reasonably big sort of monopoly type things, CME and Euronext, and of course BlackRock. We'll see BlackRock's earnings shortly, I would have thought, in a couple of weeks. But yeah, CME announced a new securities clearing house, so more sort of financial plumbing. They sort of seem to be very good at this. There aren't sort of all that many companies that offer this sort of behind the scenes. When you buy a share on Trading212 or Interactive Brokers, that isn't sort of everything done. There's loads of stuff that sort of goes on behind the scenes. Companies actually, sending the shares, clearing things, and it's sort of, the shares actually reach your sort of nominated account after like 1 or 2 days, as opposed to you just buying it, and it being said it's settled within like 2 minutes. So yeah, there's still an awful lot that goes on behind the scenes, and CME are looking to do much more of that. So they've set up a clearinghouse. I would expect they see this as a high margin business. Margins are looking good. Checking back on the last earnings, they actually come out in October. I sort of didn't cover them at the time. I think there were sort of more important things going on. But yeah, sort of profit I think was slightly down for the quarter, but the sort of first 3 quarters of the year still looking pretty good. And they were at, I think even for that quarter, for Q3, they were at sort of 58.5%, I think, net profit. So still one of the most profitable companies in the world. So yeah, looking rather nice. And we get a bit of monthly data as well from CME, which is always nice. I think companies that put out monthly data are obviously fairly confident that it's going to be quite good. So yeah, CME, you would expect sort of if things started to get bad that they may stop reporting monthly data if they sort of saying every month things are down on last month. It would don't know, start to look a little bit bad. I haven't sort of gone back and seen, when things take a bit of a downturn, whether they carry on this reporting as is. But yeah, maybe we'll have that sort of sometime in the next year or two. But yeah, average daily volume 33.1 million contracts. This is sort of part of my thesis, really, that the whole world is using more and more derivatives, and they're getting into crypto as well. Average daily volume of 424,000 contracts of crypto. So they introduced their sort of smaller baby crypto type stuff as well, I think. So yeah, that's no surprise that the number of contracts has grown if you're sort of doing like 1 Bitcoin futures as opposed to 100 Bitcoin futures. But yeah, interest rates up, equities, energy, everything looking pretty solid. So that was good. And they're also getting into it looks like prediction markets, a sort of joint venture with FanDuel, one of the sort of US, part of Flutter Entertainment, which, well, are sort of LSE listed, but now New York Stock Exchange listed, so the focus will be on the US listing, I'm sure. Yeah, looking to get in on prediction markets, so you can trade on tomorrow's headlines. A lot of people have sort of said that this could be really interesting, like people bet on people will buy and sell Tesla based on sort of earnings coming out, but maybe more so just whether like car deliveries will beat the estimates or not. And there could be something in the earnings that is completely unrelated to car deliveries, and the stock could go down even though deliveries are up, or vice versa, and all people really wanted to bet on was the car deliveries. So yeah, potentially with prediction markets they could make a market for just Tesla car deliveries as opposed to the whole stock. So yeah, that's just very, very small example of why I think things like this are attracting people. You can get into sort of political events and sports. I think sports is the biggest thing with the non-crypto prediction markets at the moment, and no surprise there. So unusual to see CME Group getting in on that, but why not, I suppose. And then, as I say, one of my other financials being sort of Euronext, the sort of thesis with this, partly, obviously I like them being a sort of relative monopoly. They hold sort of a great deal of the European countries' stock exchanges, but also the debt side. They're sort of kind of a global player in debt from the looks of it, and that was sort of my thesis. The debt isn't exactly a huge part of their business. The FICC markets, fixed income, what do they call it? Fixed income trading and clearing. So yeah, it's 19% of the company, but I can see that growing reasonably well. Equity markets being sort of 21%, data solutions and capital markets and things 38%. So yeah, they're sort of fairly diversified. But in terms of growth, obviously we've got treasury income, doing quite well with interest rates and things where they are. No surprise there. Custody and settlement up 11.8%. Pretty good. Capital markets, they made an acquisition of admin control. They sort of do lots and lots of these sort of small acquisitions with their profit. They sort of make 35%, generally 30 to 35% net profit, and they sort of spend a lot of it on small acquisitions. So that acquisition came in over the last year, so it's not really 37% growth, but yeah, 37% growth including the acquisition. But it's the fixed income trading and clearing side that sort of really interests me. sort of more and more debt being pumped out into the world. Deficits, pretty much every country, every G7 country, I think, is in fiscal deficit. So just keep getting more and more debt. That flows into financial markets. And yeah, fixed income trading and clearing up 14.7%. It's one of their most sales increasing areas. So 14.7%, looking very nice. FX trading is sort of a small part of that, which was slightly down. Commodities trading and clearing up 11.3%. So most sectors sort of doing quite well, but the fixed income side that I'm sort of somewhat focused on, doing pretty much the best out of the bunch. And Samsung. So what sort of drew me to invest more in Samsung? I was obviously already reasonably up and decided to sell my Vici and put more into Samsung. So they're sort of quite a diversified business, and I don't think that they're getting all of the love for the parts of their business that are really doing well. So they sort of have this somewhat ridiculous naming scheme. Everything just sort of in initials. Basically the DX side is your sort of consumer electronics side and is a very, very large proportion of the total business. It's the largest segment in total. Obviously, their Samsung Galaxy phones makes up a huge part of this, and the DS side is the semiconductor side, which I'm sort of very much interested in. You've got your sort of consumer electronics side up overall 8%. Some of this includes all sorts of stuff: TVs, washing machines, laptops and everything. So it's the sort of legacy, if you like, legacy business, slower growing business, and your semiconductor side is the sort of more interesting bit, with memory being the hot topic at the moment. Sort of Micron doing really, really well at the moment, and SK Hynix from Korea as well, of course, doing exceptionally well, with them being entirely focused on memory chips, where memory is sort of 26 trillion Korean won. A little bit ridiculous numbers, about 1,200 to 1, I think, US dollars to Korean won. So yeah, 26 trillion out of 86 trillion is a reasonable part of their business. And then the sort of foundry side making up the remainder of that to get up to 33 trillion. And overall is up 13%. So obviously the foundry side is dragging down memory here at sort of 20% to get down to that, but there's still potential for the foundry side to catch up to TSMC. And I sort of mentioned last week, I think there's room for both of them, and Intel, really. I think we're just going to need more chips in general. I did mention Tesla done quite a large deal going forward to supply chips for their vehicles. So I don't know, maybe TSMC wanted too much, or couldn't supply that. Tesla aren't exactly going to be first in line, I wouldn't have thought, for TSMC. So yeah, maybe they push that over to Samsung. And then the smaller segments, I think this is Samsung Display Corporation. They sort of have it as a separate unit, and Harman Kardon as well. So they got their sort of consumer audio side, which they acquired about 10 years ago, I think now. So yeah, the memory side is obviously extremely fast growing, and sort of your other Microns and SK Hynix and people are at like 40 times earnings, 50 times earnings, expecting to grow earnings incredibly going forward. So forward PEs and things aren't actually that high. But yeah, the sort of idea is Samsung could just somewhat quietly increase profit without people noticing. Obviously, there's people, there's thousands of people watching Samsung and sort of 20 or 30 institutional analysts, and they will notice, profit increasing, and they'll be building a sort of sum of parts model, and they'll split out memory profit and everything. But I think there's an awful lot of people that won't pick up on it. So yeah, that was the idea with Samsung, really. The sort of semiconductor side going somewhat unloved. They are still on the foundry side, as I say. They are still producing, chips for other people and producing their own Exynos chips for their own phones, which is quite nice, not having to get the chips from someone else. Even though I don't think these chips are the best out there, really. They buy a lot from Qualcomm as well, the Snapdragon ones. And yeah, focus on production of gate-all-around 2-nanometer process, which is tough to do. TSMC are doing it, and it's tough to do for them as well. Intel sort of having a good go, still saying they're going to overtake. Can't really see that happening all that soon in sort of any real volume. And pushing the Samsung pushing the memory side, which should I believe catch up with SK Hynix. There was talk about Samsung potentially sort of overtaking SK Hynix as the sort of lead producer at some point, which I believe they're the biggest producer at the moment. It's just maybe not on the absolute high end stuff for Nvidia. But yeah, I think Samsung looking pretty good. So as far as the portfolio goes, sort of a couple of other notable moves this week. I think herein, maybe I sort of was a little bit quick to swap my options out. It's up 6.14%, although is still slightly under my average price. So yeah, I'm probably about the same as I would have been keeping the options, or possibly slightly better off since a week has passed and they expired in March. Well, they were expiring in March. So FMC actually 6% up, even though it's hugely down overall. Sylvania Platinum taking a little bit of a knock, but still over £1, so very, very nice. On the option side, haven't taken the chance to sell any more Equinox. It's sort of been down quite a bit over the last week, 12.68%. So yeah, we'll look to sort of trim that again at some point, but not just yet. Didn't get the opportunity to buy any B2 gold, even though price has been down in the last week, but the options themselves don't seem to have come down all that much in price. I think people are still optimistic and thinking this dip is temporary, basically. Gold hasn't really sort of come down too much in the last week. It's just the miners have come down. So I think sort of the options people are still thinking it'll rebound back. And yeah, I want to have that long-term upside. So yeah, haven't been able to buy any more. Coeur Mining, I sort of almost forgot that I have got to sell in the next 2 weeks because I don't want to buy those shares. So yeah, I've sort of made a note, and these may be gone by next week. Undecided what I'm going to do with the money. It is quite a lot. Not sure I want to sort of just distribute that elsewhere into other options. I may sort of add to one of these stock positions or sort of distribute it amongst a few of them. Don't think I'll be taking a new position. But Hive, I did add quite a bit of Hive this week. They've sort of been taking a fair knock on price all the way up until today. Really, their Hive are up quite nicely today and sort of this week, really. So hopefully they may have turned a corner, and these buys will have been quite good. These are sort of January next year, so they've got a year and 2 weeks to run, basically. and I'm saying them to get over $10, some even $12. So yeah, I'm hoping for it to go much higher than that, really, on a strong Bitcoin bull run. So we'll see. It's a big gamble, and I've obviously lost some money already on Hive. So yeah, we'll see. And on the ETF side, it's quite interesting to note. Obviously, Nasdaq and S&P. This S&P small cap and the mid caps down about the same as the regular S&P, but Vanguard Emerging Markets up 2.2%, quite good, and iShares Clean Energy up 3%. So rather nice. And as I say, Bitcoin sort of doing quite well. Hive and Iron and the other miners doing quite well off the back of Bitcoin and Ethereum sort of pushing on a little bit this week, or mostly, as I say, today. So 3.4 and 6% up for those. So yeah, as I say, overall a slow week, but still some things happening on the portfolio. So leave your thoughts in the comments below, how you guys are getting on and what you're looking forward to for this year, and like and subscribe. See you soon.